Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast, a live Q&A session. My name is John Lane, CISO here at Biscom. I've been with the company over 25 years now, working directly with our customers on enterprise implementations, configurations, and consultations with them. I'm going to be your moderator for today's event. Every day, millions of customers, millions of users, I should say, at over 6,000 companies rely on Biscom to secure reliable document delivery solutions, including fax and secure file transfer. Our goal today is to share some of the expertise we've gained over the past 34 years on fax and secure file delivery in order to help you maximize your existing fax systems and cloud transfer systems. Now, I want to introduce the panel, have them all introduce themselves, starting with Bill Ho, our CEO.
Hello, thank you for coming and looking forward to answering all the questions you may have.
Hi, my name's Rocco. I'm the Director of Sales and Strategic Alliances and glad to be here today.
And I'm Larry Grant, the Director of Sales Engineering. I'll be glad to help answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks. Let's get to those questions right off the bat here. We're going to start with the questions that were submitted during the registration process, and then we're going to move on to the questions that are submitted during the Q&A session and mix them up. To ask a question during the session, you have two options. Go ahead and type a question into the Q&A panel, and we'll answer that for you. Or if you want to speak to us directly, you can ask the question live by hitting the raise your hand button. And when it's your turn, we'll unmute you, let you know it's you, and give you a chance to ask a question. Leave you unmuted just in case you have a follow-up question on your question. As a reminder for everyone, the webinar is going to be recorded today. So all attendees will receive a copy of the recording after the event so you can share it with your colleagues or just listen to it again. Now, let's move on to our first question. First question we have from the registration process: what features or capabilities do customers find most useful?
Why don't I start out, John, with that one? What features or capabilities do customers find most useful? I think some of the larger customers actually find advanced fax routing software one of the more useful software tools. Basically, it's a rules-based engine for making unattended routing decisions. Pretty sophisticated. It can route based on rules or policies. It can actually do an OCR read as well as barcodes. So if you think about it, workflows, streamlining processes can all be automated by using this powerful tool.
We also have job tracking, which is that web-based reporting tool. It can report on all sent to receive faxes to your fax environment. That is a very popular feature, especially when it's coupled with our enterprise fax management tool, which is real-time monitoring and real-time alarming.
Yeah, Larry, I would actually, agree with that, especially since we released the EFM, the fax management platform. I think that's actually gained a lot of traction because it really gives customers the ability to dive in and see what's going on with their environment in real time and preempt some issues, right? I think that's we've seen several customers who were able to kind of head off a problem because they started seeing, some of their fax traffic spike or some of the queues kind of get overloaded, right? And so they could then go in and track down, where the problem existed.
Those are all good features, but I really like, I should say, the add to list feature, right? And it's a great functionality where you can print from many applications to send out one fax. So if you're, say, in the healthcare side and you have a few different applications, maybe an EMR as well as some documentation you need to grab from a health plan, you can do a file print, build a running list, and then submit it all as one fax to be sent out at one time. That's, over time, been my favorite feature, and it really opens up eyes for customers and end users when they see that capability, and it helps them to kind of streamline their processes.
Right. Actually, it was one of our patents.
That is right. Yeah, that's a patented feature. So moving on to the next question, what are the main advantages of going cloud versus on-premise?
Do you guys mind if I take this one? It's a good question. I'd say one of the biggest advantages is outsourcing the responsibility. I like to tell people, leave the responsibility of fax and managing fax servers to us. We do a pretty good job at it. We have a lot of experience at it. The other big advantage is really eliminating space in your data centers. And with that comes eliminating costs, data center space, computing costs, telephony costs. So there are a lot of advantages to take advantage of.
I think, telephony and telecom, I think are two, or it's an area that a lot of people aren't that familiar with. And so when there are problems, I think that's often, causes a lot of headaches. So that's certainly something that, we completely obviate because, we basically handle all of that. And I think the other thing I always tell people is when, IT teams have so many priorities and so many projects to do, fax usually isn't one that, is something that people want to kind of take on. So, like Rocco said, leave it to us. We'll take care of it. Think of us as a utility. When you flip on the light switch, electricity comes on. That's kind of how, a lot of people think of us, our cloud fax, where, they just start sending and we handle all of that back end without them having to deal with anything.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, Bill.
We're going to move on to our next question. What kind of automation is possible? What do companies do that helps save on manual processes?
Well, there's two kinds of automation. We have inbound and outbound automations. On the inbound side, we have advanced fax routing, like Rocco mentioned earlier, which is a rules-based engine that does pre-processing on received faxes, allows us to make some automatic intelligent routing decisions on received faxes. In addition, on the outbound side, we have tools like DocFlow that allows us to automate some batch faxing or automate legacy systems and convert them over to Biscom to fax through our solution.
Yeah, I want to take it from a different angle. The automating the manual process. I mean, think about it. Faxing from your desk, composing faxes, receiving faxes. It takes about 1/10 of the time. Not to mention what you can do from the application standpoint. Envision this, no more printing out, filling out cover pages, getting up and walking to the machine. With the proper integrations, you don't even have to leave your application. You can send faxes directly out, and lo and behold, you can receive faxes directly into the application and work them from there.
Yeah, Rock, I really like the ability on some of the inbound side, more so on my side, with reading barcodes. So reading a barcode off a fax, automatically routing it into a medical record or into a loan document based on just that record number that's on there.
Yep.
And have that come in, remove all the users that would have to in the past read, open up the fax, download it, upload it into another application. This way you can pull it directly into that application with no in-between step.
Agreed,
saving
John.
time and money.
Yeah, I tell a lot of our customers, barcode is a very reliable method of making a routing decision. Actually, I use the term bulletproof because it works so reliable.
Hey, Larry, just kind of follow up on what you were mentioning, the automation and workflows. Any that you can think of that some real world examples that people really has helped them?
Sure.
With processes.
Well, in particular, our new REST API for using our APIs, such as the new REST API to send or receive faxes. That's been extremely popular lately. That is one of the new features that we have, came out a few months ago. The various APIs, DocFlow I mentioned, route and receive faxes into like a configurable workflow, a custom built workflow that we created using our mailbox server. And it allows users to work on an actual receive fax, and then they could do some processing, and we could do some automated routing after that, after they do the processing.
Right, the next question, something we hear in some form or another a decent amount these days. With COVID, we're in cost-saving mode. At the same time, we're worried about uptime, redundancy, and all the other needed features. How can Biscom products support this functionality and these features?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I I think we certainly saw a pretty big uptick in people calling in right when, everyone started working remotely. And I think that was primarily because, people just aren't set up to handle their faxing and when they're working from home. Just imagine if you had to put a fax machine or deploy a fax machine in everyone's home office. That'd be quite a bit of work.
That's a help desk nightmare.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, yeah, if we had to do that, it would be quite a task. So that I think is when you have, I think Rocco, you saw a ton of people calling about just cloud fax because you could just turn it on, start using it right away, and you had access to your inbound faxes and able to send very easily as well.
When I saw this question, the first thing I said was cloud, and it was a really good question for the person that submitted, and if you dissect the question, they were asking about uptime and redundancy and product support. That's all within the description of a cloud service. I mean, think about it. We have documented uptime, plenty of redundancy behind, lead numbers, as well as it can be very cost efficient using it because, as everybody knows, you only pay for what you use. So it's very scalable, especially in these tough times.
Yeah, and if you're looking for those cost savings, look into some of those automation features and functionality we just talked about in the previous question, right? Look for ways that you can eliminate manual processes that take up a human's time in order to get them done. All right, just a reminder before we move on to the next question, if you have a question, go ahead and ask it in the Q&A dialogue or raise your hand and we can get to you. So next question, I have a legacy Biscom solution. It looks like we have a lot of cloud questions coming in here all at the same time, which is interesting. What are the steps to migrating that solution to the cloud?
Well, it's quite simple. With the Biscom architecture that we use, your users, your applications are all talking to the FaxCom suite. And it's a suite that communicates with the fax server, be it a hosted fax server on-premise or even both. So it's really just a matter of repointing FaxCom suite to talk to the hosted fax server. I mean, it's literally a checkbox and a username and password to connect.
Yeah, I agree. It couldn't be any easier to migrate. And, it goes back to the design and the engineering and the hindsight that, our engineering team had back in 2005, laying it out. We're able to use our core competence and we're able to push it in the cloud. And it made the transition so easy for people. And, we can also do both at the same time. As you probably know, you can support cloud as a backup. My point is, it's so similar to the legacy systems that some people don't even realize when the business continuity side takes over, or if their fax server shut down, it's completely transparent to the users, which is a testament to the way it was designed.
Yeah, that's one of those design goals I think you put in as a feature request way back in the beginning, Rock. Make sure that the end user doesn't see any difference, right? They can continue sending and receiving faxes without, having to be retrained, because that's one of the most costliest things for companies to do.
John, the last thing I'll say is I had to explain to several of my customers, I had to answer to what is this $7 bill I received this month? And, I had to explain to them, well, something must have happened. There must have been some type of interruption with your production fax server because
I love those questions. You got that, and you love the questions, it can't be that easy, right? When you get them back and you describe it, but it is, right?
Right.
So let's move on to the next question that we have in. Looking for a use case in medical and I guess this case, hospital environment.
Yeah, healthcare is a huge vertical for us, and it's used in healthcare. In fact, it's used everywhere. Patient charts, lab results, prescriptions, approvals, discharge notes, right? Those are all being faxed. And one of the reasons is, there's so many different health IT systems out there. A lot of them don't actually communicate very easily, but one thing that they do support is fax. So that protocol is kind of a very universal method for sharing information. It's super reliable. It's HIPAA compliant, right? So all of these things make it ideal in the fax world. Yeah, I think if the one nice thing too is in a lot of systems that fax isn't even it's not really something that people have to think about, right? They just say, I need to deliver this information out, and behind the scenes, everything is kind of handled for them. The fax goes through, the information gets across, and that's what they primarily care about.
Yeah. I would just add too, Bill, I see it being used heavily in intake. When someone comes in and is getting triaged, they need to access medical records, to look at this patient. And then if they're moving a patient through the hospital, maybe for x-rays or for labs, they need to move that information around. And maybe it's not an affiliate, maybe it's not somebody in the hospital per se, but maybe it's somewhere else. And how many times have you sat in a waiting room waiting for your records to get to you? With some of the integrations we have and offered, it makes it really seamless for people to send records around. And, I'd like to think they get there sooner than later.
And that's where the Rock, you're right. That's where add to list and things like that come into play on the outbound side. Yeah. You might have 5 different systems and that you need to send out one fax from all of them. And it is amazing how some of these systems and healthcare aren't tied together, right? And sometimes it's a matter of you moving the record from one system to another by a fax. In a hospital, right? And I've gotten this figured this out just from Bill's, right? Sometimes, somebody working in the same damn department is actually a different company, even in the same hospital. So moving that information through fax is one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next question. We got a question coming in on training here. What's the Biscom training like? What do people get out of it?
All right, well, I'll take that one since I actually head up the training. We have a team of trainers here that are specialists obviously within the Fastcom product line. The trainers all do installs at customer sites. They work with customers remotely. They're all extremely experienced with the Fastcom solution. So, we're talking about things that we support, we install, we have to assist customers with, and some of the topics, obviously fax servers, Fastcom suite, setting up your fax queues, the job tracking I mentioned earlier, working on advanced fax routing for the routing of received faxes. So there's a lot of information shared. There's a lot of information passed on to the end users. They also get the opportunity to install the software and configure it. We walk them through setting it up. And then very importantly, they also get to talk to other students from other companies and get to share ideas, share experiences. And it's a really good give and take.
Yeah, I agree, Larry. And I too have a responsibility with the training, usually taking people out on a social level. And I get to sit down with them usually over dinner and discuss the training. And, the feedback is incredible. I'll never forget, the best quote I ever heard was from a gentleman I was sitting next to. He had a few Chardonnays in him, but he did say to me that he couldn't wait to get back and use some of the knowledge that he learned today. And the other unique thing that I heard is, I go out to visit our customers a lot, and they've shared with me that they actually keep in touch with the people that they trained with. So it's almost like, Larry, wouldn't you agree? It's almost like a little Biscom user group where in some cases they'll bounce problems off of, other Biscom customers before they even come to the help desk. So that sharing of information and, learning what's new and going back to the office and applying it, it's a great experience. I encourage anybody who hasn't taken advantage of the 3-day training on site, hopefully we get back to that one day, to definitely do it. It's a great interaction, not only with the trainers, but the Biscom and the personnel.
Well, we are doing 3 days of training in November, on November 2nd, and it's all done remotely. The students will still be able to do all the installs on the VMs we provide.
Mhm.
So it's still almost the same experience, except just not in person.
You know, one thing is, you know, what I like about training is, like, you know, our customers come in, they usually send 1 or 2 people each for each customer, and we sit in the training room, and I have an opportunity to actually interact with them and talk to them. And the thing I just, you know, love is that our customers are just the nicest people. They're always so, you know, ready to learn and have such interesting stories. You know, we kind of, as Rocco was saying, you know, we don't just sit here and just go through all the, you know, configurations 8 hours a day. You know, there's a chance to actually interact and socialize. So that to me is just, it's such a nice, you know, time to have them in our facility. And the other thing I think they really like is seeing, so, you know, they're calling our support team, and our support team is all based here, you know, right in our headquarters. And they love to see the people that they're talking to on the phone, right? Because they may be talking to them, you know, over and over and over again, and they finally put a face to the name. So
That's a great point, Bill. That's one of the most favorite things people will point out during the wrap-up survey we give them, is meeting the people that are here, meeting the people that they talk to.
Yeah.
And I always like to say, you know, we're trying to make them dangerous, right? Give them enough information to go back and play around with things and make them dangerous. And we just assure them that, hey, if you make a mistake, we're here to help you out.
Right.
Hey, Larry, what if someone can't make it to that session? Can you talk about what options they have, right? So say they can't do it on the 3rd. What else can we do for them with training?
We always can schedule some customized training. It could be module-specific training, just the fax server, just enterprise fax management, whatever. We could also just do training for their team as well. If there's any issues or questions regarding training, just reach out to us. We're very accommodating.
You know, John, I'd be remiss if I just didn't mention one thing. You know, our training class is called Essentials, but there are a lot of very sophisticated users out there. And I want everybody to know, if the Essentials doesn't fit their criteria, they're looking for something more, we can always put together customizable training courses for, you know, their specific team managing their enterprise.
That's a great point, Rock. All right, let's move on to the next question. If possible, can you look to discuss how we can look to leverage enhanced reporting for our users? We're being asked to provide ad hoc volume reports for various line of businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Reporting, I usually lean on job tracking, a web-based reporting tool, a SQL backend, and it is all metadata reporting. You cannot pull up the content of the fax, but you can see all the metadata about who sent one, who received one, to what number, from what number, how many pages, was it successful, and so on. So if you're ever trying to find a fax or find out if someone sent you a fax, there are ways within job tracking to run reports based upon, I don't know, caller ID, or the fax number it was sent to, or basically any metadata that we could possibly track, job tracking will collect. In addition to that, enterprise fax management is not necessarily tracking individual fax jobs, but rather it's monitoring your Faxcom environment. So that is going to track things like if you have an issue with a fax queue, or the received faxes are routing via email and there's a problem with your corporate email. There's been a few times that we knew there was a problem with corporate email before corporate email knew there was an issue. So depending upon your need, we have a tool that can assist you.
Yeah. So that was a really good question. I want to thank Rich for sending that question over. It's very specific, so we'd be happy to circle back to you. But, you know, one of the most common reasons people are looking to use these types of tools, like job tracking, for instance, is really for tracking faxes going in, tracking faxes coming out, you know, summaries of what they're doing. Sometimes it can be built for bill back, sometimes it can be for reconciling a bill, but this really automates the process. What we haven't talked about is these reports can be set up to run and trigger on, you know, a specific day, week, or time of the month. and not only trigger, but be delivered by email to a specific, person or persons who needs to get this on a once a month basis. And, people that are doing a reconciliation of monthly statements, this can be very helpful.
And that's a great point, Rock. And additionally, you can import these reports and this data in. We publish the schema, so if you want to pull it into your own, similar to your accounting and bill back type response, Rock, that you can pull that information directly into your own system. We'll help you out with that, give you the structure of the data so you could, if you want to automate it, do it that way as well.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, is TLS supported in Avaya SIP deployment between the fax server and Avaya and Session Manager? I'll grab that one myself. The answer is the SR140 from Sangoma, formerly Dialogic, as well as XCAPI that we work with, all support TLS over SIP. So I can't say for sure that Avaya has that capabilities, but as long as they support TLS over SIP, it'll work with our system. It's going to use G711 instead of T.38 because the T.38 standard doesn't have any security component in it when it comes to the network portion. But we've had customers use it over SIP with no problems. The networks are a lot better. You don't see the packet loss jitter and delay that you'd see in the past anymore. So they're pretty stable. And yeah, just double check with your Avaya rep to make sure that they support SIP over TLS, and I'm sure they do at this point. They wouldn't be in business if they didn't.
I believe they do, John.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Larry. And the other way you can secure it too is do it over a VPN connection, have a separate dedicated network, or other ways customers have also secured those connections, if that's a concern. I'm talking from my CISO hat on that one. Moving on that one, because that was pretty simple. How to set up the default options for workflow policy in the web client. Talk about some best practices to do that.
All right. So workflow policies. As part of Faxcom Suite, we have a workflow tool referred to as Mailbox Server. And in there, we could set Faxcom user policies. Now, the best option and best practice is when you assign users access rights to these workflows, use AD security groups. This way, as users are added or removed from the department, they get added or removed from faxing. You manage your users in AD, you don't have to manage them necessarily in Biscom. We just set up the group in our various roles or Faxcom user policies, and the rest is automated.
Some great points, Larry. I think Active Directory and Active Directory user groups, as well as policy, are the best way to manage some of that when it comes to users, because no administrator wants to have another system with another set of user groups or users that they have to manage in policies. They prefer to do it kind of all in one location. So that's some excellent points. What are some best practices when it comes to on-premise fax systems?
Well, let me handle that one as well. Absolutely, positively, keep up with your Microsoft patching, your operating system patching. There are no known issues with patching, so please stay up with them for all the same reasons: security and stability of the operating system. Your standard normal backup policies regarding if you do weekly fulls and then daily incrementals, you can keep up with that as well. There's no special requirement. It's whatever for us, it's whatever works best for your environment.
That's also something, Larry, if someone wanted to call and have like a consultation, at least to discuss it, I think that's actually, they can tell us their environment, and then we can provide some of the, more specific recommendations probably around that.
I think that's a good point, Bill. I'd like to remind everybody too that the latest versions of our software can be found on our website under the support tab. So you can always check what our latest release is against the release you're running.
That's a good point, Rock. You always want to kind of keep up to date, and there's release notes there, so you can see if there's anything in there that may either give you new functionality or an issue that was fixed that may help you.
I also want to add one other thing. So if you're an on-prem customer, this is a question about on-prem fax system, definitely look at our hybrid cloud option, which allows you to deal with issues. If you have any issues with your system, it can automatically fail over. We can also take on any overage that you have. So that's one of the, I would always recommend that as a kind of a best practice, which is to have multiple backups in there. And you can certainly do it with a high availability system, but our cloud is something that you can put on, layer that on top of that even.
And we just started sending out just a few months ago a new tech bulletin. Yeah. So if you're not receiving that, go ahead and reach out to your account manager or our customer success team. And that has, maybe 1 or 2 tips every month on things that you can use in maintaining or leveraging your system. It might be information about a new release, a bug fix, or a new feature that we think that customers, especially from the tech side, really want to know about and help them leverage a system and keep it up and running.
Talk to your reps.
We love talking to our customers, so call them early and often. Next question that we have a department admin reading faxes, and I love these types of questions, saving them into a folder, and then uploading the faxes. How do I reduce the time burden on my admin? I mean, how many times, Rocco, have we heard it from a customer out in the field?
Oh my God, John, and we've seen it too, and I'd love to take this one for the team. So, receiving to an admin, having them view a fax and then forward it on, it's really something it's where it all started. But the technology, the software has really evolved. So for this customer, I would strongly recommend looking into doing direct inward dial routing. And that means the fax could be received and it could be routed directly to the endpoint without any human intervention whatsoever. Just simply have Biscom read the fax number associated to maybe an email address. No more administrator, no more burden of checking a folder for all these faxes, maybe even, reading something they shouldn't read. So we can do that unattended routing in the simplest form using what we call a direct inward dial phone number. And John, we saw this question earlier, and you and I had a little conversation about costs associated with the numbers now. And why don't you share that conversation?
Sure. Yeah, that's one of those things that everybody thinks the fax number is expensive, right? These days they're cheap, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. You might as well give everybody a fax number that might need to receive confidential information that's not for kind of a group use, right? It's cheap, it's easy, and it's going to remove lots of headaches. And it's going to increase security because now you don't have one person reading this stuff and potentially intercepting confidential information that's really intended for somebody else. So that's kind of the conversation Rocco and I have centered around. I mean, the other part of it as well is to, automate some of that stuff. I think I mentioned earlier about the barcode reading, right? Have it read a barcode, have it read some OCR text tags, pull information from that fax automatically that helps to make some decisions. That rules-based engine that you talked about earlier, Rocco, that we have customers that will have, a medical form coming in. It'll read the patient record number, the MRN number off of it, and then automatically say, hey, this goes into Rocco Abendanzio's record, or it goes into Larry Grant's or Bill Ho's, and it reduces the need for more people to see, PHI in that case. But it could be, it could be social security numbers, it could be credit card numbers. Right. We do that ourselves here whenever we have somebody send us a credit card. It's automatically read and routed into our own product in order to be kept secure. How can I use my current setup to fully support work from home? We get this question a lot now with COVID, right? Where we see companies that were in the office most of the time where 99% of their staff is at home now working. How do our customers adapt to that? I know you've talked to a bunch of them, Rocco, recently on it.
Yeah, and I would, what I would basically, the first question I would ask is, well, how is it set up today? I think one of the easiest methods taking advantage of fax from home would be if they have access to their company's email. And if the fax is integrated with email, they can compose and receive faxes directly from email. Another nice method would be to simply deploy a web client, and that means faxing from basically anywhere that you have access to a browser. It could be your home computer, it could be your handheld device, it could be your phone. As long as you have a browser, you can gain access to the Biscom web client. Or worst case, I've had to do in some situations, John, was I stood up SaaS model cloud setups for customers. Just simply, the only prerequisites I needed from my customer was an email address and had them provision a phone number. And we really got them through some tough times rather quickly.
Yeah, we had a couple of natural disasters that we helped customers with, right? It wasn't COVID in that case, but I remember a tornado in the St. Louis area that a couple of customers needed to temporarily just use something outside of their network, because for that time period, their network didn't exist as they were recovering it.
We had another incident during a hurricane where someone actually loaded Bascom Suite onto a laptop and then drove to a Starbucks like 2 hours away and connected to their network because everything was down. And they were able to download all the received faxes.
Well, I hope they got at least one of those strawberry icy refreshers I love while they were
Those
there.
are good.
We'll move on to the next question now. Is cloud fax economical? And it's something we do here for high volume faxing, or would an on-premise faxer be better?
Well, I think, people think that on-prem is always going to be cheaper. And, and that's, I think it really is pretty dependent on your situation, your environment, what your needs are. The calculus doesn't always point to on-prem being the least expensive, primarily because I think when you do a ROI calculation, you really have to include everything that's involved, including people. I think that's probably the most expensive, is people's time, managing the environment, the systems, deployment. You got to think about uptime. If you have to, the thing that we see often is, when you're doing an upgrade, that has to be done over a weekend. That has to be done with a team. You have to have everything kind of set up and backed up. So those are all kind of really, you don't think about it because it doesn't happen every day. But when you start looking at some of those costs, you start to realize that, cloud, which wraps all of that kind of cost into a single metric, which is the cost, price per page, it starts you start to realize that becomes a much simpler way to think about it. And the other thing to really think about is, what value does each fax have to you? So a fax costs, maybe a nickel a page or something, depending on your volume. And, sometimes the content is super important. So it's a mortgage, or it's a health record, or it's something that, is really highly valuable. So, does it matter if you're paying 5 cents or 6 cents? I don't think it really does if what's important is making sure it gets there. I'll give you one example. So FedEx, when they came out, they were charging 3,000% more than the post office was for delivering a letter. And, seemed like crazy. Who would pay that? But it turns out a lot of people are going to pay that because they absolutely guaranteed it was going to be there overnight. And they realized that, the cost of the stamp or the cost of FedEx even, it's minuscule. Both of those are kind of minuscule in relation to the value of the content that you're delivering, right? It could be a really important contract that you need to make sure it gets to, from point A to point B. So that's the way to really think about things. I know it's really easy to kind of point to and look at price per page and long distance fees and telecom charges, but you really have to think about it. So long story short, if you have questions, talk to us because we can help you kind of assess some of your what your requirements are and whether it makes sense to go cloud or on-prem or both.
Yeah, good points, Bill. And you can contact any of the reps here at Biscom, and we can work with you on, ROI, point out all the, the pertinent pieces to this spreadsheet for you.
Those are some great points. And the biggest, I think, takeaway for me is look at everything that's involved. Don't just look at that straight cost per page. look at everything else that may affect that cost and all the different processes and make the right decision. And Rock and Bill are right. We have some great account reps here that have tens of years of experience that can help you with those decisions. Seems like a follow-up question related by somebody else. My CEO is concerned about cloud security. Anything that can help ease his mind? I wonder if we get a CEO on this line. Do we have one that can answer this question?
Why don't we give this one to Bill?
Sure.
I know you want to take it, Rocco, but we can let him have it.
Yeah, I think that's this question is obviously an important question. Certainly was more prevalent many years ago when cloud first came out. Because just people didn't know, and I think also back then, cloud meant different things to different people, and for a lot of services out there, it was really just a rack of servers inside a coat closet, and that was people were calling that a cloud. So yeah, I think it was really an issue. These days, I think in fact the pendulum has swung the other way, where you think about these companies like us, including us, of course, that spend so much time and have so much expertise in this that we work tirelessly on making sure our cloud is really super reliable, backed up, scalable, can handle all, has tons of capacity, and also the other big thing is we've become security experts, because all of the things that we've done, we've had to ensure that there's excellent security around everything that we do. So we know exactly what we need to do to make sure that all those faxes are protected and that information is secure. So, in fact, I think cloud these days is actually more secure than some environments. And as Larry actually pointed out, the patching, right? So many cybersecurity breaches have been because someone forgot to patch a server somewhere, a random server sitting in their environment. Whereas, we have a whole team of operations people who simply, are making sure that we are up to date on every single, VM and server that we use.
I think patching is probably the best example, right? That is the way that 99% of the automated ones get in. That if it's not phishing, it's because someone didn't patch something from typically 5-6 years ago even. It's a server that you forgot about out there. And that's where cloud companies really focus. I mean, if they don't, security is the lifeblood of all cloud SaaS offerings, right? One breach that a company can encounter can cost them their entire business. So they have to, take that as the most serious and important thing. And companies will do, like us, will do things like SSA E18s and SOC 2 reports and compliance reports that help us, prove to our customers that we have compliance, but at the same time help us keep us on the straight and narrow, and keeps companies on the straight and narrow, and helps to understand what the features and what the security needs of our customers. And we always have customers asking us questionnaires, and that's what you should do with any provider, right? Ask them those security questions, get those answers, because they should be happy to share that information with you.
If they don't, buyer beware.
Moving on to the next question. I heard there's a new web client. What are some of the advantages of using it? Maybe some of the new features.
All right, well, first and foremost is the back-end technology. It's using our new REST web services API. It's all coded with HTML5. It's very fast, very quick to use. And the design was carefully put together with a lot of feedback from end users, customers, and so on. So it's going to be a better user experience, more up-to-date controls. So it's just more intuitive to use. Some of the features in there, the new features are the cover page selection allows you to actually see the cover page before you choose it. Helps make sure you are choosing the right cover page. Of course, splitting receive faxes, it's very intuitive within this client. And it allows you to share inboxes easier. It's a much cleaner, much neater interface to work in.
From a practical standpoint, I like it because it provides people with mobility, people that need to grab faxes on the fly. It's just a clean, elegant client that you can access from any browser with a username and password, and it's very handy.
And for the on-prem customers, the installation's been simplified. Instead of using IIS, it's using .NET Core, so it's compressed. The installation's minutes now, instead of having to do outside configuration that could sometimes takes hours to do.
Good.
Okay, going to move on to the next question that came in. If I have a competitive solution, can I repurpose any licenses to move to Biscom? I use Dialogic SR140 licenses with another enterprise fax provider. Can I take those and move them to your solution?
Yeah, especially if it's Dialogic. You know, we have customers that make migrations to Biscom all the time. And, you know, one of the first questions we always ask is, what are you using today? If we learn of a Dialogic product, you know, we'll always make an inquiry, whether it was a fax board or even the SR140 licenses today. Yeah, they can all be repurposed and, you know, save a customer a fortune in their migration project.
Yeah, we've had a ton of customers move from competitive products, and that does reduce that entry point, right? It allows them to move it over. And we can work with Dialogic or Sangoma now, I should say, and you know, use some demo licenses. That way, we're you know, getting you the ability to set it up and test it at the same time before rehosting those over.
Oh, that's more the icing on the cake, though, right? So I think people move over for the capabilities and
Oh, that's a good point.
support, but you know, hey, save a few bucks on the licenses. That's, you know, no one's going to complain about that for sure, right?
That's a great point, right? They're not moving just because of that. They're moving because of maybe new capabilities like our advanced fax routing and one of the other great things everybody's mentioned, or, you know, sometimes support, right? We pride ourselves on having the best support in the industry. And that's one of the biggest reasons customers move to us. All right, so moving on to, we're starting to run down a little bit on time here. Moving on to a few more questions that we have. What's the porting process like? If we want to move our fax numbers to your cloud service, are there any limits, timing, that kind of stuff? And I know Rocco's one of our experts on that.
I've done enough of them in my time, John. As you know, I was here rolling out the porting process, and it's become very user-friendly, let's just say. The toughest part about the porting process is having our customers fill out the letter of authority properly. And best practice, it's always good to have a phone bill or a central record on their desk when they're filling it out. But once that's been filled out and received properly, you know, a local number will only take about literally 5 to 7 days to port over. A toll-free number, it takes a little bit longer, maybe around 7 to 10 days. But to be on the safe side, John will always quote, you know, 2 weeks for a local number, 4 weeks for a toll-free number. And I encourage everybody, best practice. It's always good to do it, you know, Monday through Thursday, just because we always like to be here to test the number, be here if there is any issues with the number move. But it's a relatively easy process to go through nowadays. Very mature.
One of the parts you missed, Rocco, are there any limits? I mean, how many numbers can I port to your cloud? 5, 10?
Yeah, as many as you want. And, you know, we have people doing blocks of hundreds of numbers. We have more conservative people. Say they, you know, have 400 numbers, they'll move them over in blocks of 100. But there are no limitations whatsoever.
Yeah, and the biggest thing to remember, to kind of follow up on some of what Rocco said, is kind of the paperwork side of it with that LOA.
Yeah.
There's a winning carrier and a loser carrier in here, right? And phone companies are notorious with not letting, you know, things go because it's revenue to them, it's money. So it's just making sure you have all those I's dotted, T's crossed. As Rocco said, you know, having a copy of a bill is a lot of times makes it a lot easier, kind of proving ownership because they're looking for you literally to not dot an I across the T, right? Well, that's no longer a T, that's now an L. right? We've heard those things, and some of our porting experts that we have will help you find and help you avoid those, but just be aware that they don't want to lose money. No one does.
Sure. One last thing to mention about the porting process is part of our cloud, we can provision numbers. So we have phone numbers, local numbers, we have access to numbers in your state as well as toll free. So if these numbers that you're using aren't published, you can always go into our cloud and provision numbers and assign them to users in a very cost-effective manner.
That's a great point, Rock. So I think we have time for about 2 more questions. I used to feed paper into my fax machine in the office, kind of with some of the COVID questions we had earlier. Now that I work at home, what can I do? So let's talk about how I get that piece of paper. I know we talked about using it if it's electronic. How do I get that piece of paper into the system?
Obviously the phone.
That's my favorite way to do it, right? And you don't need any special client, right? You can just use email to fax. If you have set up for it in your company, take that picture, send it off to the fax number at whatever fax domain you're doing, with fax come anywhere, or if it's your own company's in-house solution, you can use.
But I do find that I'll PDF it. So I'll use an app that actually converts it to PDF. I think that becomes a little bit better as a faxable format, because pictures can be really, it'll use up a lot of the not I want to say toner, but on the other end, a lot of processing power, right?
And time, right? The more dots on that page, the more time it'll take. That's a great point, Bill, to add in. The other thing is, if you have a home scanner, you can also do that, right? Many people will do that, scan it in and then send it out through email or through one of our web clients. Okay, we're going to finish up with one last question. And once again, if we didn't get to your question today for some reason, we're going to get a response out to you in the next few days at latest. What comes after fax? How do I transition to something different?
Well, that's a question that gets asked a lot. I think one thing that we do notice is, I've heard it for over 20 years now. Fax is dead. What's next? And there are always some great technologies out there that can certainly do some of the things that people are doing for fax for. But one thing is, we know it's really sticky. It's because it's easy, it's secure, it's reliable, right? So that's why fax kind of continues today. And going back to the healthcare question, it is going to stay around for a really long time because of the interoperability issues. So that I see as kind of still being a strong part. But that said, one of the things that we've developed is our file transfer solution, and that is a pure digital solution, right? So something that we think about is, okay, if you are going to migrate off of fax, what do you want to do? And that's where our secure file transfer or cloud, both either cloud or on-prem, both give that customers the ability to send digital documents, Word documents, native files, right, directly to someone else, both with all the security that you expect in fax, full audit trail, and super fast, right? It's seconds rather than potentially minutes. And I know who's that? We have a customer that sends a 2,400 page fax. How long does that take? 20 hours. So that's a perfect candidate where you might want to send that through our secure file transfer system, and that's also integrated with our fax platform.
Yeah, I think it's a natural progression that's specific to an industry. And again, I love being right there when they're talking about it, because we have a platform of products for secure data exchange, and we have migrated a number of customers from fax to secure file transfer. And like we always say, if you've enjoyed the experience on the fax server platform, then you have nothing to lose. There's low risk in trying this platform, and we have a lot of happy customers that made that migration already.
Yeah, we have some great integrations that we've pointed, as Bill talked about, that we've done between the two products, that you can send a fax. You know, as an example, send a fax from Epic and it's not really going out as a fax. It's going out as a secure file transfer because it's a 2,400 page compilation of all the patient's medical records, right? And especially older patients are going to have more records, right? There's more things going to happen in their lives. And you got to transfer it over for, say, a transplant or something like that. They need to know everything. And those faxes can be lengthy in both time and pages. Secure file transfer, you're there in minutes. Not minutes, I should say seconds. I should correct myself. All right, so that's all the time we have for questions. Bill, do you have any final thoughts? Maybe a little bit about Biscom for anybody who's not familiar with us, how long we've been around and that kind of information?
Yeah, we've been around for a while, and you know, Biscom invented the fax server back in 1986, and you know, we basically are, you know, we consider ourselves kind of the foremost expert in fax, especially for enterprises. You know, our focus and our expertise really lies in super large organizations, high volume, high scalability. And the other thing that we are moving into, and kind of like the last question was kind of a perfect segue into this, which is, you know, digital transformation. And that's, you know, we're looking at how do we move people to, you know, more modern kind of methods of communication. And, you know, our goal is to actually have a single platform that supports fax, secure email, file transfer, collaboration, synchronization, right? All of that is useful in kind of the world we live in today, where communication is so prevalent and so important. And in fact, we have an ebook that we're going to be releasing. I think everyone here will be getting one, a copy of it, and that's all about, you know, kind of how people look at digital transformation within their organization.
So Bill, as you mentioned, we've been around for over 34 years. It just dawned on me, this panel has a little over 100 years of fax experience, right, combined. So I think we can probably be trusted and we know what we're talking about.
Just the four of us, yeah.
That's so I want to thank the panel for sharing their expertise today, taking time out of your busy days. Thank all the attendees, because I know you guys are all busy out there, especially in these tough times. If we didn't get to your question for some reason today, someone will reach out to you over the next few days to get you an answer and follow up on any of those maybe loose ends. But if you have a question anytime, anything from today, a month, a year into the future, reach out to your account manager. We love talking to customers. We have the phone number on our website, our number. We're not one of the companies that hide it. We want you to call us. We want to talk to you. So go ahead and reach out to us and talk to it. Or, you know, sometimes I myself will do it. I want to send a quick little email. Send it off to info@biscom.com. They'll get you in touch with the right people and get your question answered. So once again, thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.